This is Olbermann versus Trump, and I'm not Trump. President Karen is now yelling at the manager, demanding to see the manager's manager. The good news, I think, is President Karen has continued to mismanage his post-election day whining and is getting his head handed to him in court. The bad news, I think, his next plan will be Trump in 24, and that is today getting traction, which I'll address in a moment. Yes, on Twitter, Trump is trying to foment the violent overthrow of what will shortly be the duly elected government of the United States of America and should be charged as such. And he is also still trying to overthrow the government by judicial coup. But his only court victory so far was to briefly delay counting in Philadelphia so that his kibitzers there could stand a little closer to the vote counters. He lost a bid to stop the count in Michigan, which shows how bad his lawyers really are, because they had already completed the count in Michigan. And when he sent Kellyanne Conway out on Fox this morning, a lot of analysts were fooled into thinking she and the lame duck president were being reasonable. Quoting her, "They spent 3 years investigating the president, impeaching the president. We can't wait 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks to get a result. What is the rush?" That is not backing away from either Trump coup attempt. It's softening people up for what they hope will be a month in court before a winner is declared. Still, the overall legal picture is this. Trump's tweet claiming the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was laugh out loud funny, written in the kind of pseudo-legalese you get in one of those crown princes of Nigeria phishing spam. And speaking of laugh out loud funny, President Karen also sent Rudy Giuliani out in public to argue his case. And Giuliani actually screamed, "Do you think we're stupid? Do you think we're fools?" Permitting all of us to pause and say, "Oh my, yes, we know you're stupid. We know you're fools. We're only wondering if you're wearing pants." Trump is fighting on too many legal fronts, with too many oafs like his own sons and Giuliani, and with too many bad results and too many vote count mountains. I think he's done. On the other hand, I think we're now back to Trump 2024. Permit me to remind you of the best case scenario I have been predicting for months and first mentioned here in the second of these commentaries on October the 8th. It is that either by dint of an immediate and conclusive Biden victory, which obviously did not happen, or as a final middle finger extended to American democracy and decency, and because he has become addicted to the adoration, that Trump would finally utter a breathless sentence sounding something like this: "I concede and I'm running for president in 2024. The rallies start next Friday." The following appeared over the bylines of Peter Baker and Maggie Haberman in the New York Times. I have not seen it reported previously. Quoting, "For months, as his chances of being reelected dwindled, Mr. Trump told advisors, sometimes joking, sometimes not, that should he lose, he would promptly announce that he was running again in 2024. Two advisors said they anticipate he will make good on that declaration if his challenges fail and is defeated, a move that, if nothing else, would allow him to raise money to finance the rallies that sustain him." The rallies that sustain him. Very, very apt. Frankly, Trump's response to the rallies is the closest thing to typical human behavior that we have ever seen from this warped, semi-human individual. People like to be applauded. 9 out of 10 of us are hams. 3 years ago, to my surprise, I was asked to dance with Michael Moore live on stage during his Broadway show. As I waited to go on, I seriously thought about turning and fleeing. But after the experience, they asked me to come back to the show and dance once again. The volume of the endorphins of egotism released was so great that I not only said yes, but I brought a special glittering smoking jacket with me to wear while dancing with Michael Moore. Before his victory in 2016, Trump had openly mused about continuing the rallies, win or lose. Now, of course, they would serve an additional and darker function. Whether his assumption that he could win the nomination in 2024 is realistic or yet another delusion, either way, the rallies would permit Trump to continue to live in the only world in which he can now function, this alternate universe he and his sycophants and his cultists have created. But he's not the only one living in that world. Why have 69 million Americans voted for him? Why? in the middle of a pandemic that claimed 1,616 lives yesterday and added 108,000 new infections. Why did exit polls show that 2 out of every 5 Americans claim they are better off now than they were in 2016? Because they now have a collective hallucination to share. Nobody asked by a pollster, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" has to show a bank statement or a note from a psychiatrist to prove it. If you need to convince yourself that COVID-19 is not really a threat to you and your loved ones, and that your go-nowhere job will someday make you a billionaire, what greater blessing could you receive than a leader who tells you you are right and everybody else is wrong, and in fact it's all a political conspiracy against you? And now, mix in what a defeated Trump's message would be for the next 4 years. Biden is lying about you needing to wear a mask. Biden is lying about your business needing to close for a while. Biden is lying about the vaccine not being ready. Biden is actually a Chinese spy from Ukraine. Biden is the man who cost us our glory. Biden is the man who illegally removed me, your president. Trump might enjoy the role of paranoid fake martyr far more than he has enjoyed the role of paranoid real president. Those crowds reeking of seething animalistic hatred, conspiracy theories, and cheap liquor will enjoy their share of martyrdom just as much as they enjoyed their share of the Trump presidency of cruelty and malice. He will still be their president. They can still wave their flags. They won't have to recede from reality that much more than they are doing right now. Nor will he. The figure of the charismatic political extremist in exile is a common enough one in other countries. 4 of the previous 6 presidents of Brazil were either impeached or arrested or both, and 3 of them still maintained their own strong political base even while they were in prison. It has rarely happened here, but then again, 43 of the preceding 44 presidents appeared to have been sane. The 44th was Nixon, and not 10 years out of office, he was being rehabilitated as an elder statesman of the Republican Party. The closest thing we have had to this, I think, is probably the glorification of the defeated traitors from the Civil War. Never mind that they committed treason against the United States of America, and that they killed people in order to defend slavery, and that, oh, by the way, they lost. They are still celebrated, as we today all know all too well. That is why, if Trump is truly gone, and especially if he makes the slightest move towards a 2024 run, a special prosecutor, or maybe a couple dozen of them, must be appointed to prosecute him and every crook he has employed. If Trump does not quit early so Pence can pardon him, we can start with him, and then the Postmaster General, and then we can work backwards through the family and Bill Barr and all the rest. Because as sad looking as the bubble of martyrdom might be from the outside here in the real world, on the inside it's fun and exciting, and there's no pandemic and nothing but white people and lots of guns. And it will constitute the kind of mortal threat to this nation that makes the House-Senate split look like a disagreement over the color of the carpets in the Capitol. These people were born martyrs. They will just be doubling down on it. And do not think for a moment that this disease will just gradually fade. Like the ever taller pedestals for the Confederacy, umbrage and martyrdom will grow through time. And the centerpieces, Trump, his sons, his daughter, his sycophants, they will all sharpen their vendettas. And the truth of this is to be found not in a Trump, nor in a politician, nor on a Twitter feed, but in James Robert Shockey. He was a baseball pitcher, and a good one, Sailor Bob Shockey. He appeared in 5 World Series. He was a borderline Hall of Fame candidate, popular, successful. He pitched the first game at the brand new Yankee Stadium in New York in 1923. The team made him manager in 1930. At the age of 39, he was taking over the most successful and famous franchise in sports. He would manage Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and they fired him after 1 year. He never managed again in the major leagues, never got closer than Newark or Jersey City, and 20 years later, he was still trying to get back from Tallahassee, Florida. Meanwhile, Shockey's managerial successors in New York had won 23 pennants in the next 45 seasons, and 4 of those managers had gone on to baseball's Hall of Fame. Then in 1976, When Bob Shockey was 85 years old, they brought him back to New York to throw out the ceremonial first pitch before the first game in the remodeled Yankee Stadium, just as he had thrown out the first pitch in the original stadium 53 years earlier, just as he had managed the team 45 years earlier. The Yankees' publicity director, Marty Appel, walked Shockey out to the mound for the ceremony, and when they got there, says Marty, Shockey cast his eyes over the glistening ballpark and the field full of great players past and present, and Bob Shockey said coldly, "You know, I should still be managing this team." And there's Trump's 2024 campaign slogan, "I should still be managing this team." Good night and good luck.